Hey, this is Stan with Spitfire Management. We're picking up and continuing our demonstration of how our Spitfire project management software works so well with the Acumatica Cloud ERP system. Let's continue right on. As you may recall, we just imported our budget of 2.9 million and demonstrated how it showed up in Acumatica with the work breakdown structure, and we promised we were going to start spending that money. In order to do that, we're going to need some vendor commitments, and then we're going to pay that vendor. Normally, in your project lifecycle, you would use invitation to bids and bid packages with the plan room, perhaps, depending on how you do business. But we're skipping everything, and maybe it's our brother-in-law or something, and we're giving him the work. And we're going to go ahead and create that vendor commitment. And 16 is the Construction Standard Institute code for electrical work, so we're going to put that there and see what happens in a minute. We're going to pick our vendor that's defined in Acumatica. We're going to say that it's a subcontract. We're going to blame our project manager, Martin, for the approval and give a retention. And we're going to see what Spitfire does with that retention in a little while. And before we continue on, let's take a quick peek at the dates. You can see these are the dates that came over from when we created the project, but I'm going to say the electrical work has to finish a little earlier than the rest of the project. That can be true sometimes. I'll make it tax day, so we'll recognize 4/15, and I'll save this work we've done so far, and then we'll go over to the items. Now, what was I doing here? What work was I going to authorize this guy to do? Well, I've already spent all that time setting up my budget, so I can use that budget again with my nice filter of 16 from the CSI code, and I can say I'm going to buy some materials and some contracted labor, and I'll add them to this commitment, and there they go. And I don't have to spend the entire amount, so I'll spend 125,000 on materials, and I will spend 44,000 on labor, and I'll save this. All right, now we're ready to commit this work and save. And when we've done that, when I refresh the key performance indicators, we'll see that the original commitment amount is been added to the panel here. That's all good. The fun stuff starts to happen when we pay the vendor. So let's do that right now. I'll move that screen over there and move the payment request over here so we can work on it. I'll save quickly since most of the information has already been filled in, and then I'll drag this invoice onto the attachment area. Then I'll use I have the invoice number I wanted down there in the name, and the due date is 6/09. That's pretty much the important stuff. I can jump right over to the line items and say I want to give them like 10% down. If I had a lot of lines, I could finish this off by using the button that copies it down. Nice and easy. So this looks like it's all set and all done. We can take a quick look at how it's going to go from me, this project assistant, to the project manager for review and approval before it goes on to the accounting. Again, we're going to skip all of that today and go right to approve this payment. And let's watch what happens. Because instead of being approved, it's going to tell us that there are compliance issues. This commitment required some workers' comp insurance, proof of workers' comp insurance, and the executed contracts had to be returned. These things haven't been marked as received yet, so you're not allowed to pay the guy. Now, we might waive this for the first 10%, and you could actually tell the system that the compliance items aren't required until the contract got paid up to a certain percent. But for now, since I'm a powerful dude at the company, I can bypass the compliance issues and approve this payment, just so we can move on with our integration demo. Okay, so we can close this payment request, and we can come back to this commitment, and we can close it because we're not going to be needing it right now. And we can collapse the key performance indicators and to open this up, and you can see that we have an approved payment request for 16/9. And much more interesting, we have the actuals have shown up here for 12/5 and 4/4. Those are the 10% of the 44,000, if you recall. for a total of 16.9. We're going to see these numbers in many places. Let's drill down or drill into the 12.5 and see, oh, it's not all in one payment though. We seem to have two things here. I wonder what's going on. So let's look at the second one, still with the data today. And we have this voucher document here, which has the invoice attached, so I can see that yes, indeed, it's that same invoice we were talking about earlier. But let's go over and see what's going on in Acumatica. Here in Acumatica, you can see that this is a retention voucher due on April 15th of 2015. Because this is the retention part that Spitfire tracked, it becomes a liability for us, but it's not due until the end of the work, until the end of the commitment when all the work has been performed satisfactorily and been reviewed and final approvals have been made. So if I chose to look at the larger amount and drill from here into Acumatica, I would see the bulk of the money with a current due date coming right up, ready to be paid. The project management staff is responsible for knowing when something is approved for payment. They take care of the approvals and knowing the work has been done and that the compliance issues are all straight. They approve a payment. The accounting team then takes over and knows when the cash is available and cuts a check and takes care of all of the important things so that the business doesn't run into a cash flow crunch. Each team gets to do their jobs without the distraction and with no double entry. Everything's going very smoothly. And that's all great, but we're going to take one more look at this because it would be really great if our project management team didn't have to enter these invoices all the time. If we have some vendors that we work with a lot and trust, we can add those vendors to the team. So we have Mike McGovern, who's at McGovern Electric. He's an electrical sub. Hey, look at that. And we'll add him to the team. We're going to just leave Chris Demo here for a second. I'll minimize the screen to avoid confusion. And then I'm going to go get Google Chrome, because it would be much more likely for a vendor to be taking advantage of the fact that Spitfire is in any time, any place, any device application and use a generic browser or perhaps their tablet. And we'll log in as Mike McGovern. And you see he has a much cleaner dashboard. He doesn't have nearly as many things going on. He does have access to the plan room. And let's go to the project dashboard. And again, he has very little on his project dashboard, but he can do vendor payment requests, so he'll create one. Creates a nice new tab. He has less fields, but he does need to put in his invoice number, which is 622, and he needs to save, and then he needs to notice he only sees himself in the routing, and we'll drag the second invoice down there, and now that he has that invoice there, he'll go to the items tab and he'll say, oh, I want 50%. Notice that it knows that the amounts that have already been paid, but he's going to jump up to 50%. And instead of, we'll type 50% on both of them. Okay. So he's all set, attached his invoice, and all good to go. And he touches the green thumbs up, and Mike is done. What's happened in the main system. So we'll go back. We can collapse the team to make more room for things. And when we look at vendor payment requests, we see we have a new one here for $60,000. Wow, that's a lot. And in fact, the way the system's been set up, someone chose $20,000 as a threshold. So instead of like before where we just went to Martin, we added in a senior executive in the routing to approve this high-end amount. Now 20,000 is probably too low for real life, but the idea of an escalated routing on demand is what we were looking for here, and we certainly have that. What's important to note is that this payment that Martin entered is back in the regular flow of her approvals. It does not show up in the accounting system until someone in project management approves it. And again, when we try to approve it, we're going to have the same compliance issues still waiting for us. And maybe this time we're going to say, hey, no, we're not getting them that much money until he deals with his compliance requirements. And so we're going to leave this request from Mike unapproved for now. And then we're going to roll up the KPI and focus on the cost analysis detail for just a few seconds, move that up, and then we'll open up the project accounting screen in Acumatica, and we'll move things around a little and get to the balances tab so that hopefully we can get both of these on the screen at the same time and see that the actual column in Spitfire and the actual column in Acumatica remain the same. No double entry, no extra work, and each team is responsible for the appropriate tasks. That's all I have for today. I appreciate your joining me. See you next time.